That little girl called me Mama for 12 years. So when she walked into my living room holding another woman's hand, I felt something inside me collapse. That's the moment I want you to picture. A warm Sunday afternoon, rice steaming on the stove, my husband humming off-key in the backyard while trimming the hibiscus bushes, and me standing there in my own home, a wooden spoon still in my hand, staring at a child who wasn't a child anymore. 12 years old when she first came to me, 24 when she walked back in, and the woman beside her, the woman she introduced as her real mother, I recognized her face immediately. I shouldn't have, not after all these years, not after all the stories my husband fed me, not after all the tears I shed raising a little girl who wasn't mine. But I did. And when I saw that woman, when my eyes properly focused on her, that's when everything I believed for over a decade started to unravel, like a loose thread pulled too hard. My husband's footsteps behind me froze. I didn't even need to turn. I felt the way his breath snagged in his chest. I heard the way his hand lost grip on the pruning shears. They hit the concrete with a sharp, metallic clatter that echoed deeper than it should have. The young woman, the girl I raised, looked from me to him, and her voice, calm but trembling, filled the room. "Daddy, I think we all need to talk." I remember blinking slowly, so slowly it felt like the air thickened with every breath I took. Because there she was, the child I had fed, comforted, disciplined, prayed for, fought for, standing taller, older, stronger, and yet somehow still that same fragile girl who used to curl up on my lap after nightmares. And beside her stood the ghost I thought I had buried years ago. But let me not rush the story. To understand the wound, you need to understand the life that came before it. Let me take you back, before the truth, before the betrayal, before that woman stepped into my living room as if she had every right to be there. Let me take you back to the beginning. Normal life set up. I met my husband, Daniel, during a time in my life when I believed God had forgotten about me. I was 34, newly divorced, living in a small one-bedroom apartment above a noisy grocery shop that smelled constantly of fried plantain and diesel fumes. I had convinced myself that motherhood wasn't in the cards for me after 3 miscarriages and a marriage that crumbled under the weight of disappointment. Then Daniel came along. He was quiet, gentle, a man who listened more than he spoke, a man who watched you with eyes that made you feel seen, deeply, fully, in a way I hadn't felt in years. He was also a widower. That part softened me even more. His wife, he said, had passed away shortly after giving birth to their daughter, a difficult delivery, complications, a tragedy he didn't like talking about. It was the way he held that story, like something sacred, something fragile, that made me trust him. His daughter, Lila, was barely a year old at the time. The first day I met her, she clung to Daniel's pant leg, half peeking at me with wide, uncertain eyes. Her hair was a fluffy halo of tight curls, her cheeks plump and sticky with leftover mango puree, and when she reached out a tiny hand to me, so slow, so trusting, something inside my chest cracked open. I didn't know that a heart could expand so quickly. We married 2 years later, quietly, in a courthouse with a witness neither of us knew. Lila was 3 by then. She wore a little white dress and carried a basket of fake rose petals she kept dumping all at once instead of scattering. I still have the picture. Her little face scrunched with concentration, Daniel brushing tears away and pretending he wasn't crying. Life settled after that. Not perfect, but peaceful. Our home was small, but it smelled like warm bread, lavender oil, and whatever soup I simmered on Sundays. Lila would do her homework on the kitchen table while I cooked. Daniel, exhausted from long days at the construction site, would come home smelling of cement, sun, and sweat, and Lila would run to him yelling, "Daddy! Daddy!" He'd scoop her up with a tired smile, kiss her forehead, and look at me like I was the missing piece he never expected to find. And in that quiet rhythm, work, home, school, dinner, bedtime, I found happiness again. The kind of happiness that lives in small things. The clink of dishes as a child helps dry them. The hum of a ceiling fan on a hot night. The giggle of a girl playing dress-up with my old scarves. I loved her, not because she needed a mother, but because something in her healed something in me. For years, I didn't question anything. Not Daniel's occasional moodiness, not the way he shut down when certain topics came up, especially anything about Lila's biological mother. Not the sealed folder he kept locked in his desk drawer. Not the fact that he never let me see Lila's birth certificate. Love makes you overlook things. Love makes you trust. Love makes you blind. And for a long time, I was beautifully, blissfully blind. Until the first clue appeared. Small, quiet, almost gentle. The kind of clue you dismiss until you can't. The first sign came on an ordinary Thursday, one of those days that should have slipped quietly into memory without consequence. I remember the weather because it had been raining since dawn, the soft kind of rain that taps gently on the windows like it's trying to whisper something. I had come home early from work, a rare treat, hoping to surprise Daniel and Lila with their favorite dinner, pepper chicken stew and coconut rice. The house was unusually silent. Not empty, just silent in a way that made my steps slow down. I called out, "Lila?" No response. I placed my keys on the counter, listening. Through the thin crack under the bedroom door, I heard Daniel's voice. Low, urgent, too soft to make out the words. Then a sound I hadn't heard in years. The sharp, muffled cry of a woman. It wasn't loud, not dramatic, just a single broken sob. I froze mid-step. For a moment, my mind tried to protect me. Maybe it's a movie on his phone. Maybe he's consoling someone. Maybe it's nothing malicious. But my stomach tightened all the same. I took a slow breath and knocked gently. "Daniel, you okay in there?" There was shuffling, papers rustling, a drawer sliding shut too quickly. Then his voice, overly calm. Yeah, I'll be out soon." But it wasn't the words. It was the tone. A tone that didn't belong in our home. A tone filled with something like fear or guilt. I backed away. Didn't push, didn't pry. Instead, I went into the kitchen, washed rice that didn't really need washing, and tried to ignore the way my hands trembled ever so slightly. When he finally emerged, his face was pale and his eyes distant. He kept smoothing his shirt like he was trying to erase wrinkles that weren't there. "You're home early," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "Yeah," I said softly. "Thought I'd cook." He nodded, walked past me, and kissed my cheek. Quick, distracted, unfamiliar. I wanted to ask him what was wrong. I wanted to grab his arm and demand answers. But years of gentle marriage had taught me his silences were not walls. They were wounds. And you don't press on a wound without care. So I let it go. Or at least I tried. The second clue. A few weeks later, it happened again. This time, it was Lila. She was 10 then, bright, curious, always humming under her breath. She rarely kept secrets, not from me. That girl could barely hold her excitement for Christmas gifts, let alone anything heavier. But that day when she came home from school, I saw something strange. She stood in the doorway, backpack still on, staring at me with those round eyes that never hid emotion well. As soon as she saw me, she froze. Then she forced a smile so quick it didn't match the fear behind it. "Hey, Mama," she said, voice pitching too high. Mama. She always said it like she meant it. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked toward her. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She shook her head fast. Too fast. Nothing. Is Daddy home yet?" I said, "He's working late today." She flinched. Not noticeably, not dramatically, just a tiny involuntary twitch. Then she walked past me so quietly I had to check she was actually moving. She went into her room and shut the door softly, something she almost never did. I stood in the hallway listening to the silence behind her door. Children hide secrets poorly, and mothers, real mothers, feel them like changes in the weather. But again, I let it go. Because life was good, because my heart was full, because love still outweighed doubt. But the clues began to pile up. Little things. A letter addressed to Daniel with no return address, which he snatched from my hand before I could glance at it. A photograph I found under the couch. A picture of a baby that looked like Lila, but wasn't in any album I made. The woman holding her had her face turned away. The way Lila sometimes stared at Daniel, confusion shadowing her expression, like she wanted to ask him something but didn't dare. Every time, I tucked the unease away, like clothes into a drawer that never quite closed. Suspicion grew. One night, around 11, I woke to the sound of the front door gently clicking shut. I reached out for Daniel. The space beside me was cold. I slipped out of bed, pulled on my robe, and walked to the living room. He wasn't there, but the porch light was on. Through the window, I saw him sitting on the bottom step, head in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. Not violently. Just a soft, broken tremble, like he was trying hard not to fall apart. I stepped outside, the night air humid and thick. "Daniel?" I whispered. He jerked slightly, wiped his face, and forced a smile. Just couldn't sleep. He never could lie well. Not to me. The moonlight caught the wet streaks still glistening on his cheeks. I sat beside him quietly. We didn't speak. Sometimes silence between two people reveals more than words ever could. After several minutes, he said, "You're a good woman, you know?" I chuckled softly. "Most days." He shook his head, staring at the dark sky. "No, you're better than I deserve." Something in those words chilled me. "Daniel, what's going on?" He opened his mouth, then stopped. His jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists on his knees. "I'll tell you someday," he murmured. "Just not tonight." I felt hurt, yes, but also worry. This wasn't a man hiding infidelity or anger or boredom. This was a man running from something. Something old, something heavy, something he hoped time would bury, but couldn't. That night, lying beside him, listening to his uneven breathing, I felt the first true crack in our life. A tiny fracture, hairline, invisible to anyone else, but clear as day to me. Because for the first time in years, I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. The third and final clue. The day everything shifted, truly shifted, came on Lila's 12th birthday. We threw a small party. Her close friends came. I baked her favorite vanilla cake with fresh strawberries. The house buzzed with laughter, music, and the kind of chaos only children bring. But when everyone left and the house grew quiet again, Lila asked me a question she had never asked before. "Mom, was I adopted?" I almost dropped the plate I was holding. Her voice wasn't angry or scared, just searching. I sat slowly beside her on the sofa. "Why would you ask that, baby?" She picked at the ribbon on her dress. Because kids at school said I looked different from you and from Dad, and..." She swallowed. "And I heard something once, a long time ago, a woman saying she was coming back for me." My heart thudded painfully in my chest. "What woman?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. And then Lila said a name I had never heard before. A name that made Daniel, who had just stepped into the room, go still as stone. He stared at her, then at me, the color draining from his face. "Where did you hear that name?" he whispered. Lila shrank back, startled by the intensity in his voice. And in that moment, I knew, whatever truth Daniel was hiding, it wasn't about me. It was about Lila and her mother, and a past he had never buried. The past was coming for him, and soon, for me.
The atmosphere in the living room shifted instantly. Sharp, electric, as though someone had cracked open a long, sealed tomb and let the old ghosts breathe again. Lila sat between us on the couch, her small shoulders tucked inward. Daniel stood frozen by the doorway, his chest rising and falling too fast. And I felt the ground tilt beneath me. Gently, I placed my arm around Lila. "It's okay," I whispered. "You didn't do anything wrong." But Daniel looked like the wrongness was tearing him apart from the inside. I motioned for him to sit. He didn't. He kept staring at our daughter like he was seeing a memory superimposed onto her face. Something familiar, something painful. Finally, he said hoarsely, "Lila, what exactly did you hear? Tell Daddy." She hesitated, curling her fingers into her dress. "It was years ago. I was little. I woke up at night because I heard you talking in your room. You were upset. You said she couldn't have me back, that she didn't deserve me. And then I heard a woman crying. She said she wouldn't give up, that she'd return for me." Her voice sank to a whisper. "And she said her name, the one I told Mom." As she spoke, Daniel closed his eyes. A muscle in his jaw twitched. His hands trembled. I reached for him instinctively, but he flinched, not away from me, away from the memory. "Daniel," I said softly, "you need to sit down." He lowered himself into the armchair like a man whose body suddenly weighed too much. Silence stretched, thick, suffocating. Then he whispered, "I never wanted you to find out like this." My heart thudded. "Find out what?" I asked, though part of me already knew. His eyes lifted to mine, haunted, apologetic, terrified. "Lila," he swallowed hard, "you weren't adopted." She looked up sharply, confusion etched across her face. "But then," he said quickly, "you're mine. You're my daughter. My blood." He paused. "But your mother," he exhaled shakily, "your biological mother, she wasn't your mom." He looked at me. The meaning hit like a hard slap. She was not my daughter by birth. But God, She was mine in every way that mattered. Leela's fingers dug into my arm, clinging like she feared I would vanish. "Mom," she whispered, Are you mad?" "Oh, sweetheart," I kissed her forehead. "Nothing could make you any less mine. Nothing." She wrapped her arms around me, relief crashing through her little body in waves. But I could feel Daniel's gaze on us. Longing, guilt, regret. When Leela finally let go, I turned toward him. "Daniel," I said quietly, "tell us everything." The story he never wanted to tell. He rubbed both hands down his face, trembling. "Before I met you, I was with someone, for years, since university." He said the woman's name again, the name that had made him freeze earlier. "She was complicated, brilliant, beautiful. But she struggled with things. Darkness, addictions, violent swings in her emotions." Leela's eyes widened, but she stayed quiet. "We tried to make it work," he said, voice cracking. "I loved her. I really did. But love wasn't enough. When she got pregnant, it only made everything worse. She blamed the baby, blamed me, said she didn't want her, said she never asked for that responsibility." His voice thickened, choked. "She tried to hurt herself. Twice. Then she disappeared for months while pregnant, and I had no idea if she was alive. When she finally returned, she handed me the baby, Leela, and said she was done." My breath caught. I pulled Leela closer without thinking. Daniel looked at her, eyes glassy. "You were so tiny," he whispered to her. "You clung to my shirt instantly, like you knew I was your safest place. I swore I'd protect you with everything in me." He wiped his face. "She left, just vanished. No calls, no address, no visitation, nothing." "And when did she come back?" I asked quietly. He closed his eyes. "The night Leela heard us. 3 years after she left." He shook his head slowly, remembering. "She showed up at the door, sober, calm, different. She said she wanted her rights back, said she wanted Leela." My heart lurched. "What did you do?" "I refused." His voice shook. "God help me. I refused. I was scared. I didn't trust her. I didn't know if her change was real or temporary, and—" He looked down. "I had met you by then. You loved Leela like she had been born from your own body. I couldn't shake her world again." The room felt too small, too quiet. "What did she do next?" I asked, whispered. His voice became a rasp. "She begged. Then she cried. And when I still said no, she said she'd fight, that she'd return when she was stronger." Leela looked between us, eyes wide, absorbing every word. "And has she?" I asked. He shook his head. "No. She never came again." A long silence followed. Leela's small voice broke it. "Is she alive?" Daniel met her gaze. "I don't know." The emotional unraveling. I felt the truth sink into my bones slowly. Pain, sadness, relief, confusion, all tangled together. I wasn't angry that he had a past. We all had pasts.
I was hurt because he hid this one from me, from us. But as I stared at Daniel, broken, shaking, pleading silently for understanding, I didn't see betrayal. I saw a man who'd been scared out of his mind, scared of losing his daughter, scared of losing me, scared of repeating someone else's mistakes. Leela crawled into his lap without a word. He gasped softly, wrapping his arms around her, holding her as if she might disappear if he loosened his grip. "Dad," she whispered, "I'm not leaving you." He broke then, quiet tears soaking into her hair. I put my hand on his shoulder. "We're a family," I said softly, "but you can't protect us with secrets." He nodded into her hair, trembling. "I know. I know." But that wasn't the end. Because later that night, long after Leela had gone to bed and the house had gone silent again, Daniel and I sat at the dining table. Only one dim light was on. He hadn't touched his tea. "There's more, isn't there?" I said quietly. He flinched, stared at the table, then nodded. "Yes." My heart tightened. "What else?" He lifted his eyes, and there was something in them I had never seen before. Fear so deep it bordered on dread. She didn't just leave. She didn't just walk away. He swallowed hard. She disappeared without a trace. A beat. And the police came looking for me. My pulse thundered. "What?" I breathed. He nodded slowly. I was the last person to see her. A chill slid down my spine. "Daniel, are you saying—" His voice broke. "They thought I had something to do with her disappearance." And before I could ask another, Daniel's last words hit the room like a cold gust through an open window. "Someone from her family still believes I did." I felt my fingers grow still around the warm cup I hadn't even realized I'd been tightening my grip on. The refrigerator hummed softly. A clock ticked on the wall behind us. Everything felt too loud, too sharp, as if the smallest sound could shatter what was left of the air between us. "Daniel," I said, quietly, "look at me." He did, and I saw it, that worn, hollow fear sitting behind his eyes, fear so old it had made a home in him. "Tell me everything," I whispered. He inhaled shakily, bracing himself. "Her mother, her name's Darlene, cold as a blade, sharp as one too. We never got along. She didn't think I was good enough for her daughter. When things got bad and when she disappeared," he paused, clearing his throat. "Well, Darlene made it clear she thought I'd pushed her daughter away. Or worse." I swallowed, slowly, deliberately. "Did the police ever formally suspect you? Not enough to charge me, but enough to question, enough to watch me, enough to make me realize that any wrong move, any wrong word could cost me Lila." My stomach nodded. "Is that why you never told me?" I whispered. He hesitated. "Yes and no. Explain." He leaned back, staring at the ceiling like the answer was hiding somewhere between the cracks in the paint. "When you and I met, I was still waiting for someone to knock on my door again, waiting for a call saying they found her body, waiting for another accusation, waiting for the past to rise up and swallow me." He rubbed his temples with both hands. "And then I met you, warm, steady, calm. You didn't ask for anything except honesty and partnership, and I felt like if I opened the door even a little to my past, everything good I'd built would come crashing down." I blinked against the sting in my eyes. "So you chose silence," I said softly. I chose survival, he whispered. My breath caught. Survival at the cost of our trust? He winced. At the time, I didn't think I'd have to choose between the two. We went quiet. There was no yelling, no dramatic scene, no fist pounding. Just two adults sitting in the soft dim of a kitchen nightlight, realizing they'd built a home over ground that had never fully settled. Finally, I reached across the table and slid my hand over his. He flinched, then relaxed. Daniel, I murmured, I can handle the truth. I'm stronger than you think. He squeezed my fingers weakly. I know that now. A knock in the dark. We sat like that for another few minutes, quiet, breathing, thinking. Then a sudden rapid knocking hit the front door. Both of us jolted. Daniel's face drained of color. Who is that at this hour? I whispered. He didn't answer. Because deep down, he already knew. He stood slowly, pushing his chair back. His steps toward the foyer were careful, deliberate, as though each one carried its own weight. I followed behind him, heart pounding. He opened the door just a crack at first, then froze, dead still. I moved beside him to see, and there she stood. A woman, maybe early 40s, worn but beautiful, hair tucked under a rain-damped scarf, eyes tired but blazing with something fierce and unyielding. She looked at Daniel, then past him, into the warmth of our home. Then her gaze landed on me. You must be the wife, she said quietly. Her voice was steady, controlled, dangerously calm. Daniel swallowed hard. Darlene. My blood chilled. So this was her, the mother of the woman who disappeared, the woman who believed Daniel had something to do with it. She didn't wait for an invitation. Stepped right inside, her boots dripping rain onto the hardwood floor. We need to talk, she said, shaking off her scarf. I don't think, Daniel began. No, she raised a hand sharply. I'm not here for permission. Eyes fell to the framed pictures on the wall. Us at pumpkin patches, vacations, birthday parties. Then she saw the one of Lila on her 8th birthday, grinning with no front teeth. Her face tightened. You love her, she murmured. Daniel stiffened. She's my daughter. And my granddaughter, Darlene said softly. The words felt like a cold wind sliding between us. You forfeited that right, Daniel snapped. I never did, she shot back. My daughter may have walked away from motherhood, but I didn't walk away from blood. Her voice dropped. I've been searching for years, for answers, for closure, and for that child. She looked at me then, really looked. You're the only innocent one in this house. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. Daniel stepped in front of me instantly. Darlene, whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking that you never told your wife who Lila truly is. Isn't that right? Her eyebrows lifted, coldly triumphant. Daniel clenched his jaw. That's not your business. No. She stepped closer. Then perhaps she should hear the rest. I felt Daniel tense, like a man watching a fuse burn toward dynamite. Darlene, I said gently, stepping forward, if you came here to take Lila? She scoffed. Take her? No. I know you've loved her more than my daughter ever did. A beat. But I need you to understand the danger you're in. My breath caught. Danger? She nodded slowly. My daughter didn't disappear on her own. She didn't walk away from her life like you think. Daniel stiffened. What are you saying? Darlene's voice sharpened. I'm saying someone helped her disappear. Someone who had a lot to lose if she ever came back. Her eyes flashed toward Daniel. And that someone has been very close to you.
For a moment, the house felt too quiet, too still, as if even the walls were listening. Daniel's breath caught. Are you accusing me? He asked, voice shaking between anger and disbelief. No, Darlene replied calmly. I'm not accusing you. I'm warning you.
She stepped further into the foyer, her eyes flicking between us, studying every reaction, every tiny shift of expression. "Someone in your life helped my daughter disappear," she said. "And if they've kept it a secret this long, they're desperate for it to stay buried." Daniel rubbed his palms down his jeans, pacing once, twice. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "You've always blamed me for things I didn't do." "And you've always hidden things," she countered, "even from the people you claim to love." Her gaze drifted back to me, and her eyes softened, just a fraction. "I didn't come here to fight," she said. "I came because your safety and that little girl's safety might depend on you knowing the truth." A shiver ran down my spine. "Please," I whispered, "just tell us what you think happened." She nodded slowly. "My daughter," she began, "wasn't stable. She made mistakes, fell in with the wrong people, owed money, but she loved her daughter. As broken as she was, she loved Lila." Daniel flinched. "That's not true," he whispered. "She left without a word." "Because she thought she had no choice. Because someone convinced her running was the only way to stay alive." I blinked, trying to process each piece. "Alive?" I repeated. She looked at me, and her face changed, softened with grief, then hardened with dread. "My daughter was being threatened," she said, "by someone close to Daniel, someone who wanted her gone from the picture, someone who wanted full control of the child." The room tilted slightly. My chest tightened. "Who?" Daniel demanded. Darlene hesitated. Then she said a name I had never expected to hear. "Your sister." Daniel staggered. "What? No, that's impossible." Darlene folded her arms. "Is it? Really?" He shook his head hard. "Emily would never. She loved my ex-wife like a sister." "She loved Lila," Darlene corrected sharply, "but not her mother. And she thought your ex-wife was ruining your life. She didn't want that child growing up with a woman she considered unfit." Daniel's jaw trembled. "That's not. Emily wouldn't think," Darlene snapped. "Use your memory. Who was around your ex-wife the most? Who always inserted herself into your arguments? Who knew exactly when she was home and when she wasn't?" Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came, because the truth was sliding into place behind his eyes. I felt the shift in him, the realization, the horror. "Emily tried to help," he whispered, though the words sounded doubtful. "Did she?" Darlene whispered. "Or did she stir them up when you weren't looking?" I stepped closer to my husband. "Daniel," I murmured, "why does this bother you so much? Why are you reacting like—" "Because," he choked out, turning toward me, "Emily was the last person to see my ex-wife before she disappeared." Silence. Absolute silence. I stared at him. "What?" he swallowed. "I never told anyone, but my ex-wife came to our doorstep the night she left. She was crying, panicked, said she needed help. I couldn't. I was at work. Emily answered the door." His hand shook violently now. "Emily told me she talked her down, that she called someone to come get her, that everything was fine." "And you believed her?" Darlene demanded. "She's my sister," he whispered. Darlene's lips pressed into a thin line. "And sisters lie," she murmured. The overlapping stories. I felt dizzy, like the ground was slipping under my feet. So you're saying that Emily might have pushed her to leave? Darlene looked at me with tired, steady eyes. I'm saying Emily was deeply involved, and she's kept a secret for years, a secret someone's willing to kill to protect. Daniel's face cracked open in pain. No, you don't know Emily. She'd never hurt anyone. People do terrible things when they think it's for the greater good, Darlene said softly. Family. Her words hit a strange, hollow ache in my chest. Family. The same people meant to protect you could be the ones who shatter everything. Daniel sank onto the bottom stair, wiping a hand across his face. So what do we do? He asked weakly. For starters, you be careful who you trust. She turned toward me again, her expression almost maternal now. You've been the one raising that little girl. You've given her stability, love, a real home. I don't want anything to happen to you. My breath hitched. Why? Why would something happen to me? She exhaled. Because if Emily knows I'm here, if she realizes I'm gigging, she won't want you learning the truth either. You're the one Daniel would actually listen to. I felt a cold ripple down my spine, a physical chill. Daniel shook his head desperately. No, Emily wouldn't hurt my wife. Darlene's voice dropped. She doesn't see your wife as the problem. She sees her as an obstacle to her control. The phone that shouldn't have rung. Before any of us could speak again, Daniel's phone buzzed loudly in his pocket. We all froze. He looked down, his hands trembling, then turned the screen toward me. Emily. Calling. At almost midnight. My blood ran cold. She knows, Darlene whispered. Daniel answered with a shaky, hello? A long, eerie pause. Then Emily's voice came through the speaker, cold as frost. Daniel, is someone at your house? His shoulders tensed. Why would you ask that? Another pause. Because, she said slowly, I just saw a car parked down the street that hasn't been there in years. My throat tightened. Darlene went still, absolutely still, her eyes locked on the door. Daniel swallowed. What do you want, Emily? Her tone sharpened. I want you to send Mom's address now. Daniel blinked. What? Why? Emily exhaled, a slow, shaky breath. So I can handle this before it blows up your life again. My heart stuttered. She knew. She knew something had surfaced, and she was trying to contain it before anyone else could learn the truth. Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. Emily, what did you do? The line crackled. Then Emily said something that made every hair on my body rise. Everything you think you know, you don't. But I'll fix it. I always fix it. Daniel's jaw clenched. No, this time you're going to tell me the truth. Another long pause. Then, chillingly gentle, don't make me come over there. The line ended. Daniel's hand dropped to his lap. The phone clattered to the stairs. And Darlene spoke the words none of us wanted to face. She's coming. We didn't move. Not at first. Not when the lights flickered from a passing car, not when the heater clicked on, not even when the house settled with a soft creak. It was as though the air itself had thickened around us, holding us still, forcing us to listen to the racing of our own thoughts. Darlene was the first to move. She walked to the living room window with a deliberate slowness, pulling back one slat of the blinds. The street outside was quiet, too quiet, like the end of a long-held breath. "She's closer than you think," Darlene murmured, letting the blinds slip shut. Daniel squeezed his temples. "This doesn't make sense," he whispered. "Emily wouldn't hurt anyone." "Not intentionally," Darlene said. "But people don't need bad intentions to do dangerous things." The room felt dimmer now, lower, the kind of dim that made you want to whisper, even when no one else was around. I took a slow breath. "Daniel, what was Emily like back then, before everything happened?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "She was protective, controlling sometimes, but she'd never—" He stopped. I leaned closer. "What?" I asked gently. He exhaled. "Back when Leela's mother was struggling, Emily used to tell me she wished someone would just step in and take over. She said it wasn't right to let a child live in chaos. I thought she meant we should support her, not whatever this is." Darlene nodded. "That lines up with what my daughter told me," she said quietly. "She said she didn't trust Emily, said she felt watched, manipulated, cornered." Daniel stared at the floor. "I thought she was just paranoid." "Sometimes paranoid people are just people who see the truth earlier than everyone else," Darlene murmured. That line stuck with me, heavy and sharp. A plan forming in the dark. "Okay," I said finally, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let's be practical. Emily's coming. She's angry. She's hiding something. What do we do?" Daniel lifted his head. "We tell her she can't come in." "And if she forces her way?" Darlene asked. He looked at me, then back at her. "We'll handle it." But the words didn't sound confident. They sounded like someone trying to convince himself that everything wasn't about to fall apart. Darlene stepped closer to us. "Listen to me," she said firmly. "I didn't come to stir trouble. I came to warn you, but warning without action is useless." She locked eyes with Daniel. "You need to ask your sister, face to face, what she did that night. And this time, you need to listen." Her throat bobbed. I'm scared of what she'll say," he whispered. "Good. That means you're ready to hear it." The car in the driveway. A sudden pair of headlights swept across our window. We all froze. Daniel rushed to the window, peering through the blinds. His voice cracked. "It's her!" A car, Emily's silver sedan, pulled slowly into our driveway. The headlights stayed on even after the engine turned off, illuminating half the living room wall. I could see her silhouette inside the car, still, motionless, like she was watching the house decide whether to breathe. Daniel turned to me, panic rising. "She's early. She must have been closer than I thought." Darlene exhaled sharply. "This is it." My heartbeat pounded in my ears. The car door opened. Emily stepped out, and I felt a strange twist in my stomach. Because, at first glance, she didn't look dangerous. She looked determined, composed, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, her face pale but set with purpose, her steps slow and controlled as she walked toward the porch. But it was her eyes, even from a distance, that unsettled me. Cold, focused, like someone who had already made a decision. Daniel reached for the doorknob, but I grabbed his wrist. "No," I whispered. "Let her knock. Don't open it until you're ready." He nodded shakily. And then 3 sharp knocks. Fast, precise, like she'd rehearsed them. Knock, knock, knock. We all stared at the door. No one moved. Another set of knocks. Louder this time. "Daniel," her voice called through the wood. "Open the door." His breath hitched. Darlene stepped beside him. "I'm here," she whispered. "She won't do anything foolish with me watching." Emily's voice came again, cooler. "I know she's there. That's why we need to talk." Daniel's hand trembled on the doorknob. Then, slowly, he opened the door just a crack. Emily stood there, hands clasped in front of her, as calm as if she came to borrow sugar. "Hello, Daniel," she said softly. Her gaze slid past him, directly to me, then to Darlene, and her posture changed instantly. "It figures," she said, her voice tight. "She couldn't stay away." Darlene straightened. "I needed to talk to him." Emily's eyes narrowed to slits. "No, you needed to cause trouble, like always." Daniel swallowed. "Emily, what did you do?" Her expression flickered. For the first time since she arrived, something in her eyes cracked, just slightly. She stepped inside without waiting for permission. "Close the door," she said quietly. Daniel obeyed. Maybe out of habit, maybe out of exhaustion. Emily stood in the center of the foyer like a judge about to deliver a verdict. "You want answers? Fine, you're going to get them." She took a breath. "But once I start talking, nothing will go back to the way it was." Darlene crossed her arms. "That's the point." Emily looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. And the softness I'd always admired in her was gone. This all started because someone had to protect that child. Someone had to think long-term. Someone had to make hard decisions that none of you were willing to make. Daniel stepped back, shaking his head. "What does that mean?" Emily's jaw tightened. "It means I did what was necessary." "Necessary how?" I asked, my voice barely holding steady. She let out a breath, a shaky one. "Your marriage depended on it." My heart thudded painfully. "My marriage?" "Yes, and Daniel's freedom." Darlene's eyes widened. "What did you do, Emily?" Emily looked at the floor, then back up with a mix of defiance and regret. "I took your ex-wife. I took her by the arm and led her to the people who wanted her gone." The room tilted. I felt myself sway. Daniel's knees buckled. "What?" he choked. You, what?" Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling now. "I helped save you." Then she added, with a trembling whisper, "And I thought she'd stay away for good. Until today." The 3 of us gasped. I stepped forward, voice shaking. "What do you mean, until today?" Emily looked at me with absolute dread. "Because," she whispered, "your little girl's real mother is back in town."